eighth graders, it is Mrs. Mathis. I am coming to you today to discuss oceans. Before I move too far into oceans, I wanted to give just a quick review of the last couple days. So the last couple days you learned about estuaries. And estuaries are these spots along the coast where you have river systems coming in and you've got fresh water meeting ocean water. So estuaries are super important. They are nurseries for young aquatic life to grow in and get big enough to survive in the big ocean. Estuaries are essential to the fishing industry. They are a place where people like to have recreation, look for shells, fish. They're beautiful places, and they need to be protected because they are very important to life on Earth. So to move away from that brackish water, that mixture of freshwater and saltwater, we're going to move into oceans. If you look at this picture, you can see that almost 3/4 of the surface of the Earth is covered with water. And if you were to look at the Earth from space, it's the blue planet. There's tons of water on the surface of our Earth, and obviously water is essential to life on Earth. That's one of the biggest reasons why there's life on Earth and not on these other planets. So looking at that, we're going to move next into just the components of ocean water. Whoops, went too far. Obviously H2O is the main component of ocean water, but then there are solids dissolved in the ocean. So tell me if you remember these from chemistry. So chlorine is Cl on the periodic table. Sodium is Na on the periodic table. And you put the two of those together and you have NaCl, which is salt, right? So most of what's dissolved in the ocean are chlorine and sodium. We also have some other dissolved solids, magnesium, sulfur, calcium, some other trace ones. And then, of course, there are gases dissolved in the ocean water too, mostly nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. So that's just a little about the chemistry of the ocean water, what's in the ocean water. The oceans are essential in helping to maintain the temperatures on Earth. So if you remember from earlier in the year, we studied specific heat, and water has a really high specific heat. That means it holds a lot of energy within it. So the oceans stabilize our temperatures, and the currents actually are involved in weather patterns. And it's interesting to see the relationship between just the temperature on our Earth and the ocean water. So that's that. In a little bit, we're going to do a drawing of this. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this particular slide, but if you look, you can see that the ocean is divided into some zones. So you have the intertidal zone, this area where the land and the ocean meet. This is where the waves are. The waves are going to crash in the intertidal area. Moving out a little bit, you have the neritic zone. The neritic zone is where you would have your coral reefs and stuff are going to be in the neritic zone. Then you have your benthic zone, which is really just the bottom. So your benthic zone goes from intertidal area all the way to the oceanic zone. So benthic is just the bottom. And then you have the oceanic zone, which once you get away from this big drop off, all that big wide open ocean is the oceanic zone. So those are the major zones of the ocean. Another thing to consider with the ocean is how much light certain areas get. So the top water of the ocean, this area in here, is the photic zone. So the photic zone is where light can actually penetrate. So it's about the top 200 meters of water in that photic zone. So there's light in the photic zone. If you remember, photo means light. So photosynthesis, remember, that is using light to create energy. So the photic zone is the light zone. And then in opposite of that is the aphotic zone. So most of the ocean is aphotic. So if you look over here, aphotic, anything below 200 meters. And there's not enough sunlight for photosynthesis once you are in the aphotic zone. So the organisms have to adapt to live differently in that aphotic zone. So those are the main zones of the ocean. And then we have creatures of the ocean. So first creature that I want to talk about is the plankton. So plankton, there is zooplankton, which is animal, and there is phytoplankton, which is plant. But you can see that they are tiny. They can be microscopic. They don't have to be microscopic, but they're very small, and they rely on the current to move them from spot to spot. So they kind of drift freely. If you remember, phytoplankton photosynthesizes, and about half of our oxygen actually comes from the little tiny phytoplankton that are floating in the ocean water in that photic zone. And then you've got your zooplankton. Most plankton are small. You will hear people refer to things like jellyfish, for example, as a plankton. Even though they're big, they rely on the current, so they're moved by the current. Things like shrimp are often considered plankton because they are pushed around by the current. So plankton don't have their own locomotion really, so they are drifting around, and for the most part they're small. The second creature in the ocean, or type of creature in the ocean, is something called a nekton. So nekton are your free swimmers. So if you can swim actively in the ocean, then you are a nekton. So any kind of fish, seals, octopus, anything like that. So anything that the sharks, anything that swims is going to be a nekton. And then the third is going to be something called a benthos. And benthos are your creatures that live on the ocean floor. So for example, a crab would be considered a benthos. They live on the ocean floor. Things like starfish are benthos. They live on the ocean floor. They don't swim about. Even coral that's stuck to the bottom can be considered a bentho. So they live at the bottom of the sea or the ocean. Just to recap that, something like this, what would this be? Starfish would be a benthos because it lives on the bottom. What about a little fish like this, like a Nemo fish? So if it can swim open or actively in the open ocean, it's going to be a nekton, right? So this would be a nekton. Dory would be a nekton. Piece of coral, I don't know if you can see this one, but a piece of coral, that would be considered a benthos on the bottom. I obviously don't have any examples of plankton. So plankton would be the tiny little things that float around in the ocean. So again, you have plankton, nekton, and benthos. Those are the three types of creatures in the ocean. So you can read that later if you need to. What I want you to do now, I want you to pause this if you need to, and I want you to get a piece of paper. I would really appreciate if you guys would actually do this because it really does help you learn. So get a piece of paper, and we're going to draw together the ocean floor, and we're going to add a couple creatures. So if you were going to draw the ocean floor, you would start, let's just start at shore here. Uh-oh, why is it not writing? Oops. Because I'm using the wrong side of the pen. Here's the shoreline. you had that drop, and then it kind of evened out on the deep ocean floor. So over here is where you'd have your beach umbrella or whatever, and you would be sitting in your chair on the ocean watching the waves come in. That's supposed to be someone in a chair. So this is the intertidal zone. So the intertidal zone is where those waves would be crashing in. So if this is the surface of the ocean, those waves are going to be coming in on the intertidal zone. So intertidal zone. And then you've got this point here where it's starting to dip. And you're going to have a lot of coral and stuff living in this section. And this section right here is something called the neritic zone. My handwriting is awful. Neritic zone. So there's the neritic zone. Out here in the deep ocean out here, this would be the oceanic zone. Oceanic, oops. That's supposed to be a C. Ooh, let's just start over. Oceanic zone. Oceanic zone. And then last but not least, we have the bottom of the ocean here. You guys, can you remember what the bottom of the ocean was called? So anything along the bottom, that was something called the benthic zone. Okay, so intertidal, where you're collecting shells. Neritic, where your coral are. There'd be lots of fish kind of showing up in that neritic zone. Benthic zone is along the bottom of the ocean floor. And then the oceanic zone's that big, wide open, deep ocean. And if you want to add a little bit more, I didn't have it in my list over here, but I probably should have. Photic and aphotic areas. So anything above 200 meters, that was photic, meaning it gets light. And then anything below that 200 was aphotic. Okay, so that's just a quick look at how the ocean floor looks, or what the zones of the ocean are. You're going to do a little assignment for me, and it will be in Google Classroom, and you're going to do it in Google Draw. So you're going to go to Google Draw. You're going to just go to Google Classroom, and there'll be a link in your assignment to your own Google Draw page. And I want you to include the intertidal zone, neritic zone, benthic zone, oceanic zone. And then I want you to put 2 examples of each, of a benthos, a necton, and a plankton in your Google Draw. So I will attempt to show you what that Google Draw looks like. Let's see if I can get there. Let's see here. So here's an example of what your Google Draw page will look like. So you're going to open Google Draw in your assignment, and you will get a page that looks like this. It's going to take a second to load here. Start by just looking at your lines. So you're probably going to want some kind of a curved line of some sort. Let's try this and see how this works. So if I start here and I bring my line down and do that, that looks pretty good to get the start of my drawing. You can insert text boxes, and you can label your things that you need to. So for example, this would be the intertidal. Did I spell that right? Intertidal zone. Can't see my keyboard. So that would be your intertidal zone. So that's just trying to show you how to start. And then you have in your assignment, you need to add creatures in. So if you need to find two benthos, two nectin, and two plankton, you can go to insert and you can insert an image. You can look on the web. You can look in your photos if you have some. If you search the web, like maybe I want to put a benthos in. Maybe I'm going to put a starfish. So I can look up starfish and see what comes up. So I want to use this one. So I'm going to insert this starfish in my drawing. It is ginormous, so I'm going to shrink him down, and I'm going to put him down here, make him even smaller. And there's my benthos. So you can add a little label, insert another text box. You can put that here and just say he's a benthos or she's a benthos. So you have your zones labeled and you're going to have your creatures labeled. So it shouldn't take you too long, but I just want you to go back through these different ocean zones and these different creatures. And if you will please, 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 when you are in your Google Classroom, if you will please turn it in, like make sure you turn your assignment in so that your teachers can see that you're done and we can give you credit for your assignment. Anyway, I hope that helps, and I hope this is kind of a fun way to do your work. And I hope you keep it on, and keep working. Don't give up. We got a couple weeks, and we can do it. So miss you guys, and hang in there. Talk soon. Bye.